let's get to the college football playoff rankings. This is what they gave us on Tuesday night. This is the top 6. They gave us Tennessee, Ohio State, Georgia, Clemson in the 4, and then Michigan at 5 and Alabama at 6. Okay, I have got 5 distinct points that I want to make about this top 25 that we saw on Tuesday. The first thing is about a team that is not in this top 6, but absolutely should be, and that's TCU. TCU got absolutely hosed by brand bias. There's no other explanation. This committee looked at TCU, and I feel like they looked at the logo on the side of the helmet and the front of the jersey more than they did the resume. Because the fact is that if TCU's resume were given to Texas or Oklahoma, if everything was equal and Texas or Oklahoma had 2 wins that were better than any win that Clemson had, if they had a top 5 scoring offense and top 5 total offense, if they had a better strength of record and strength of schedule than Clemson, if they had the better quarterback than Clemson in terms of the situation Max Duggan has put TCU in, then there is no doubt in my mind, nor any of our minds, that Texas or Oklahoma would have been in the top 4. So this is pure and simple brand bias, and it is laid bare for everybody to see. And committee, you better fix it, because all of us know it. The brand bias is hurting TCU. That's number 1. Number 2, the SEC coalition is strong, really strong. And rightly so. They've got a lot of great teams this year, and I'm not going to say that they're not. Having said that, 5 teams in the top 11 I thought was a bit of an overreach. I thought 5 teams in the top 15 probably was more accurate, but there's LSU overranked to a great degree, by the way. The biggest outlier as it relates to the AP poll and what they rose into the CFP, they're at number 10. And guess what LSU does for the SEC, and more specifically Tennessee? It presents a really good backstop for Tennessee, because Tennessee's got that great win in Baton Rouge against LSU. So now, with LSU at 10, you've got this coalition where even if they were to lose to Alabama this week, they're not dropping past 20, right? And so now Tennessee, even if they lose to Georgia, they're not falling below TCU. But that's only there if you've got the backstop of LSU. If LSU would have been more properly ranked at 14, 15, 16, and let's say they lose to Alabama, they would have fallen into the low 20s, maybe even out of the rankings, depend on the style of the game. But no. That's not allowed, because we've got to backstop Tennessee, because, heaven forbid that they were to fall below TCU if they would have lost. So the coalition, the firewall, the SEC firewall, it is strong, it is built, and it is real. All right, next point, number 3. The conference that has enjoyed the least amount of success in the CFP era is the Pac-12, and we all know that. But when I looked at these rankings, I saw a clear path for the Pac-12 to get to the CFP. Now, they're not in the top 6, but remember, they don't have an undefeated team. But when you sit there and you look at Oregon ranked where they're at 8, when you look at USC at 9, UCLA right outside of the top 10, you can see a path. And specifically for USC, because they don't have the direct comparison like Oregon does to an SEC team because of Oregon's loss to Georgia, you see a path or a scenario where if they get just a little bit of help, you could see a Pac-12 team, more specifically USC, potentially in that playoff. I think UCLA could also be in that boat. They just need a little help. What's the help that they need? Well, it would help if Clemson were to lose, let's say this week to Notre Dame. It would help if TCU were to lose, and it would really help if Alabama were to lose. At that point, what you have is the Pac-12 probably getting in to that 4th spot in the CFP. So there's a path. And for people that root for the Pac-12, that's really all you've been hoping for over the course of the last few years. So that's number 3. Number 4, Clemson's overrated. Clemson being in the top 4 right there is a nod, not to this Clemson team, but it's a nod to what past Clemson teams have done. Okay, so this is a ranking that is born out of the ghosts of Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson and Hunter Renfrow, because this edition does not have the resume to back up this ranking. They are not better than Michigan based on the eye test. They are not better than TCU based on the resume. Neither of those can be true, and this playoff committee probably knows it. This is a nod to the ghosts of Christmas past for the Clemson Tigers. And you know what? Good for them because their program is outstanding. But none of these other teams had to pull their quarterback and rely on their run game to the tune of 60 carries to beat Syracuse at home. And that's absolutely the fact with Clemson. So what does that tell me? Michigan should have been in the top 4. When you look at what Michigan has done this year, yes, they've had a poor non-conference slate, but they handled Penn State to a greater degree than Ohio State did. They've been thoroughly dominant. Only 5% of their snaps have come with when they did not have the lead. And because of that, I think Michigan is a team that should have been 4. They were underrated and Clemson overrated in these first playoff rankings. And that leads me to my last thought, and maybe most important thought. I think that these rankings are a bit like Kaiser Soze, if you will, right? The greatest trick the devil ever pulled is making people think he didn't exist. And what do you hear on social media constantly about the CFP rankings that aren't the final rankings? These don't matter. That is 100% false. These rankings absolutely matter for 2 very specific reasons. Number 1, this is the recipe of how you make the playoff. Okay? This is the resume builder. The only path to the playoff is through competing against teams in the CFP top 25. So when you get these rankings, they will tell you exactly how to view games and exactly how to view wins and losses. This is the recipe, all right? When it calls for sugar in my chocolate chip cookies, I don't say, hey, it doesn't matter. It matters a great deal. And the second part is perception. Okay, folks, perception in college football still matters a great deal. Not only is it how we crown a champion, but it's also how we recruit. Remember, this is not a sport with a draft and a draft order. We recruit players, and those players choose their programs. So the perception of those programs matter a great deal. When there seems to be a glass ceiling over a program like TCU or Utah, and those letters show up in a recruit's house, it matters what the perception is. If the burden of proof is on those programs and everybody knows it, then the perception matters. And that's why these rankings matter and every set of rankings matter. So those are my 5 thoughts on the initial CFP playoff rankings. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here, College Football on Fox.